Well, it wasn't all pretty, but it was beautiful because the LSU women's basketball team is headed to the Sweet 16.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome into the Locked On LSU podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, you can also check us out on YouTube as well. So just head to youtube.com, search Locked On LSU in the search bar, and then hit that subscribe button, and you'll get notified as soon as new episodes of the podcast drop. Today's edition of Locked On LSU is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get into it because LSU, Kim Mulkey, Angel Reese, Anissa Morrow, Flau'jae Johnson, and the squad are headed back to the Sweet 16 after taking down MTSU on Sunday afternoon. Now, final score 83-56. Absolute beatdown. And if you didn't happen to catch that game, if you just happened to Google the final score, saw 83-56, total and utter domination, took care of business, on to the next. That's at least what the final score would indicate, right? Because it's about a 30-point win, 25 if you want to split hairs here. But that's not necessarily how it happened. That's really not how it happened at all. Because while the final result might tell a certain story, the actual game itself told a completely different one. Because that game, that was not always pretty. And that was a lot higher stress than I frankly anticipated it to be. And maybe you did as well. LSU was trailing at the half. Like LSU was getting beat up a little bit, frankly, in the first half. Trailed 36-32, 41-32 within the first few minutes of the third quarter. So I'm thinking going into half, I don't know what's going on here. The shots weren't falling. Hailey Van Lith continued to have some offensive struggles. And I thought, okay, they're going to come out at halftime. They'll look like a completely different team. And they did eventually, as the final score would show, as the final score would indicate. But it didn't happen immediately as soon as they came out of the locker room in the second half. But there was at one point in the third quarter a major momentum shift where they looked like a team that was struggling to create offensive opportunities, struggling to defend, and frankly, a team that just looked kind of flustered into it in the first half, rather, and it kind of shifted into a team that was like, all right, now we're feeling it. Now we've kind of got our swagger back a little bit. And you felt that momentum shift around, a few minutes into the second half. In the third quarter, they outscored MTSU 27-13. Fourth quarter, outscored MTSU 24-7. I mean, that's a massive shift. That's a massive change from a team that was trailing at the half. And I don't know what that momentum shift was necessarily, nor do I think that I could point to one singular thing. I think it could have been a combination of several things. First and foremost, Anastasia Buldrava, MTSU's big man, for lack of a better word, she fouled out toward the end of the third quarter. That seemed to give them a little bit of a jolt of energy. That was the Angel Reese, the clip that's now gone viral of her waving goodbye. Frankly, I'm so sick and tired of talking about Angel Reese's, hand gestures on the court. It's basketball. It's trash talking. It happens. When it happens with the men's team, we don't talk about it. But for some reason, whenever Angel Reese does it, it's a problem. When a Stanford player fouls out and she walks off the court and says a big bleep you to Iowa State, it's not a problem. So let me just put that out there. I'm kind of sick and tired of this. But anyways, anyhoodle. Anastasia Buldrava fouls out at the end of the third quarter. I mean, she was 5 for 5. She had 9 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Once she fouls out, you start to feel some momentum, and you start to feel maybe a little bit of the pressure starting to cook on MTSU. So whether it was that was the momentum shift, whether it was, just figuring things out in the third quarter offensively, I think the story of the game, at least for me, was Flau'jae Johnson. And how Flau'jae has been so far throughout this tournament so freaking reliable. How she's been putting up solid numbers. On Sunday against MTSU, Flau'jae put up 21 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. She led the team in points. She was huge. She was huge for this Tigers team. And I think that Flau'jae is a household name to a certain extent, not nearly as much as Angel Reese. But you can't look at what Flau'jae did on Sunday, what she's done throughout this tournament. Really the catalyst that she is or can be or has been for this team, and not say that she isn't just as important as Angel Reese or as Aneesah Morrow or maybe some of these bigger household names. That's not to say that Flau'jae isn't. You catch my drift. Flau'jae was incredible and pivotal for the Tigers on Sunday. But I bring up Aneesah Morrow and Angel Reese. Heck, Angel Reese had 20 points and 11 rebounds. Aneesah Morrow, 19 points, 13 rebounds. It was a team effort. But what Flau'jae did really stood out to me. What she's been to this team throughout the tournament. It's not going unnoticed, at least to me, because without her contributions, this isn't the same team. I think the biggest thing that I step away from this game thinking is, has it been pretty? No. Has it been sheer and utter domination throughout 4 quarters and every single game so far in the tournament? No, it hasn't, and it hasn't been even close. But this team's finding ways to win. That when their backs are up against the wall and they're trailing in the third quarter, they know what they need to do in order to turn it on, in order to get into that second gear. That they can have a lackluster shooting first half, but be able to turn it around and match it with nearly 30 points in each subsequent quarter of the rest of the game. That's what's really impressive to me. Doesn't always have to be pretty. Because in March, it's about survive in advance. You don't get style points for blowing a team out by 30 points at half. You don't get extra kudos. You don't get a bye for being the more dominant team. No. You get the opportunity to play more games when you win games. And that is what LSU has found ways to do, even when it's not easy, even when it's not pretty, even if it's not the exact brand of basketball that they want to play, they'll still find ways to win. And look, I had a couple whistles or two that went their way. And that absolutely helps. I'm not going to say that LSU won because of the refs. Did it help? Absolutely. But I always say, refs giveth, refs taketh away. For every time any team, not just my team, but anyone's team, every time they get totally screwed by the refs, they are gifted better opportunities from refs either later in the game or in another game. That's just how this works. It's the law of averages. So yes, absolutely, LSU got a few favorable whistles. But overall, they're finding ways to win games. And that's all you need to do in March. Find ways to win games. Survive in advance. Coming up next. This wasn't the biggest storyline. LSU beating MTSU in what was a really, chippy and fun and physical game. That wasn't the headline. LSU going to the Sweet 16, that's not the main headline coming out from over the weekend. But I do want to get into what was the main headline from over the weekend, and we'll get into that coming up next. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Every week, we're picking one team that stands out. It's a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The NC State Wolfpack are obviously this week's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised us all with a powerful performance in their first 2 games in the tournament. Wins over Texas Tech in Oakland have set them up to play Marquette in the Sweet 16. They say win life, go Rogue, and that is exactly what the Wolfpack have done here. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. That's NissanUSA.com. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every single game of the tournament. Whether you're betting big on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. And all you have to do is just place a $5 bet and win that bet. You have $200 to spend on what I think is the best betting month of the year because, of course, March Madness is upon us. So just visit fanduel.com/locked on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Again, that is fanduel.com/locked on. FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON. FanDuel.com/locked on. All right, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every single day. It'll bring you the biggest stories without all of the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, so LSU advances to the Sweet 16. They head to Albany and will take on the winner of the UCLA Creighton game. That game's going down tonight, Monday evening at 7:30 p.m. local Baton Rouge time. UCLA is favored in this game. UCLA is the higher seed. UCLA is a 2 seed. So I would expect UCLA to be the team that comes out that LSU plays in the Sweet 16 in Albany. But as we know, weird things happen in March. So keep an eye on that game tonight. Again, tip off at 7:30, UCLA and Creighton. The winner advances to play LSU in the Sweet 16. But that's not the biggest headline. The biggest headline that made national news was Kim Mulkey's pregame press conference. If you haven't heard it, you can go find it anywhere. You can find it on Twitter. You can find it on ESPN.com. You can find it on Fox Sports. You can find it on CBS Sports. You can truly find the press conference, the reaction, the commentary, and the court of public opinion, all of that, really anywhere. We don't have to dig too far to find it. Essentially, the crux of what Kim Mulkey said, if you haven't heard it, I will give you the brief spark notes. Kim Mulkey's essentially calling out a Washington Post reporter that has allegedly been calling her over the last 2 years about a piece that sounds like has some fairly damning information. She accused this reporter of baiting former coaches and players into saying bad things about her. Those are her words, not mine. She's claiming that she plans to sue this reporter if he comes out with any libelous or defamatory content in this article. That's brief spark notes. If you haven't heard it, I'm not going to waste everyone's time giving a full recap of it, but you can find it, wherever you'd like to find it. This is an interesting one because however you feel about what Kim Mulkey said, I think is a direct result of how you feel about her. If you don't like Kim Mulkey, which, let's be honest, a majority of people don't, then you're going to assume that she's guilty, that whatever she did is so damning that she's trying to get out ahead of it and basically claim that what the reporter is saying is false. If you do like Kim Mulkey, if you defend Kim Mulkey, and look, I'm not saying if you should like her or not. That is totally your prerogative. If you do like Kim Mulkey, if you're a defender of Kim Mulkey, then you're going to say, well, this is all on the reporter. Then that reporter is poking and prodding and is out to get Kim Mulkey. But I have noticed with all of these Kim Mulkey press conferences that have made headlines, if you don't like Kim Mulkey, you don't like anything she does. And if you do like Kim Mulkey, you'll defend anything that she does. She's an incredibly divisive figure. She did it to herself. I don't think she cares, frankly. But here's my thing. I don't know if what Kim Mulkey is claiming that reporter did or is doing or has done is true. If this reporter is in fact calling former players and coaches and baiting them into saying bad things about Kim Mulkey and granting anonymity to protect them, to encourage them to say bad things about Kim Mulkey, well, that's bad reporting. That goes against every single journalistic integrity bone in their body. That goes against every rule of journalism to bait potential interviewers or sources. If it is true that this reporter had bad intentions of giving a very short deadline right before LSU played their game on Sunday, I guess this was the game on Thursday, so 2-day deadline starting on Tuesday. If that is true, then that's wrong. But I don't know if that is the truth. I don't know if Kim Mulkey is quote unquote hiding something or is guilty of something. I don't know because I don't know the information. I know Kim Mulkey's side and what she said. I know who the reporter is. Some of the articles that he has written in the past and how it's not very favorable for LSU. And frankly, I don't think it was very fair. An article that he wrote in the past that Kim Mulkey mentioned in her press conference about a slanderous article about Brian Kelly. Now, look, I don't know. I'm not automatically going to give Kim Mulkey the benefit of the doubt just because she coaches the team that I love and cheer for and want to win. Because frankly, I don't know. Like, is she guilty of something? I hope not. But I don't know. Is she telling the truth? I would hope she's telling the truth if she's speaking about it in a press conference. But also, I don't know. Because we don't have a lot of information about what she's talking about. If she is, in fact, telling the truth or not. I think time is just going to tell with this entire situation. I would assume that the article is still going to come out. I would assume that this reporter is still going to continue to get sources and going to continue to write his story because he has a job to do. What I would hope is that everybody's telling the truth here. What I would hope is that there's not just slander, but libel. And libel meaning just false statements, false claims being made in print. So time is going to tell. But I think it's very obvious. If you like Kim Mulkey, you'll defend her. And if you don't like Kim Mulkey, everything that she does is going to be awful and terrible and horrendous. Like, Kim Mulkey could rescue a sick puppy off the streets, and there would still be people trying to paint her in a negative light because of it. That's just, it is what it is. But overall, my kind of overall takeaway from this, because I don't know what to feel. I don't have the information. My overall takeaway from this is, even if people didn't care about that article before, didn't know about that article before, they care now. Kim Mulkey kind of put a target on her back after that press conference. I can't say what I would have done if I was in her position because I've never been in her position, and I don't think that I ever will be in her position. But it does feel like she's bringing a lot of negative attention. Kim Mulkey's a damn good coach, but I just want to talk about basketball. I don't want to talk about Angel Reese's waving goodbye because I don't care that Angel Reese waved goodbye. Honestly, I think that any other player in America could do that, and I would say, damn, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. I love that this sport is embracing the trash talk, just like the men's game does. If that was Caitlin Clark waving goodbye to insert other player in America here, I think we'd all say, damn, Caitlin, good for you. Little sass. Who doesn't like it? It's sports. But frankly, I'm just tired of all of the negative energy and attention surrounding this team. I just want to talk about basketball. And before you say, well, if you only want to talk about basketball, then only talk about basketball. I can't ignore this. It's national news. It was talked about on First Take this morning. Shannon Sharp had a long diatribe about it this morning. It's national news. I'm not going to ignore that. But I'm sick and tired of the targets on this team's back. They embrace it. They absolutely embrace it. I think they kind of know that they're the villains. And if you're going to be the villains, embrace being the villains. But man, it seems like every single week it's always something new. It is drama, drama, drama. All right, coming up next, some exciting news. Continuing along with our theme of women's basketball. Massive transfer portal announcement coming out on Monday afternoon. My reaction to that, what LSU is getting via the transfer portal and hopping on it early. We'll get into that coming up next. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the right tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. So LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you cannot find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Actually, the radio station that I worked for, we used LinkedIn Jobs to help fill a producer opening, and it was during one of the busiest seasons of the year, and LinkedIn Jobs helped us find the right person. And of course, the best part about it is that it is free. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, thank you again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. Some exciting transfer portal news on the women's basketball side of things that came out on Monday afternoon. LSU has landed a former 5-star recruit in Jersey Wolfenbarger, a 6'5" guard from Arkansas. So Jersey Wolfenbarger is one of the top players in the transfer portal. Kind of an interesting story, an interesting path here. She was a McDonald's All-American in high school. She was a 5-star recruit, like I mentioned. She was the number 7 overall prospect in that recruiting class. She was one of the more heavily recruited players across America. She's from Arkansas, decided to stay home and go to the University of Arkansas. Her freshman season, she was SEC first team all SEC freshman. She was freshman of the week a handful of weeks in her freshman season. And in her freshman season, she averaged just shy of 8 points and 4 rebounds. The next season, the stats didn't necessarily jump off the page. Averaged 4 points, 3 rebounds. Numbers took a step back. And then Jersey stepped away from Arkansas's team about a week before the season began, this past season. So she didn't play for Arkansas this past season. She doesn't have stats from this past season. So she comes into LSU with 2 years remaining of eligibility. Why she stepped away from the team? I've done a lot of research, and I haven't been able to find out exactly why. I don't think that it's going to be reported exactly why she decided to step away from the team. Was it that she knew she wanted to enter the transfer portal and was trying to preserve some of her eligibility? Maybe. Was she injured and it wasn't reported? Perhaps. I'm not quite sure. But all of that to say is that she was not with the team this past season, but maintains another year of eligibility. What I think this is, it sounds to me like it could be Angel Reese insurance. That you're getting, again, for lack of a better word, a big man. She's 6'5". What I noticed against South Carolina, and I'm using that as an example because top team in the country, LSU just didn't have the size. They didn't have the length and obviously the depth too, but just looking at the size, LSU was outmatched. That you got Angel Reese, and that's really the most height you got in terms of your starting 5. What Jersey Wolfenbarger does is brings in that size. Now, again, the stats didn't necessarily jump off the page throughout her first 2 seasons at Arkansas. But one, what went wrong with the coaching staff? What led her to step away from the team? And what can this coaching staff do now that they can get her in early, that she entered the transfer portal as soon as she possibly could, that she committed to LSU? She is their first transfer portal commitment for the 2024-2025 season. So what can they do now that they have, almost an entire year? I guess what? 9 months until the start of the season? And she be coached up under this coaching staff to make more of an impact, at least on the box score. Now, Jersey Wolfenbarger could have made a massive contribution that didn't show up in the box score that I just can't see because I did not watch a lot of Arkansas women's basketball in 2021. I'm going to be completely honest with everyone there. But it's a good get because it's a player with obviously a ton of talent, not just based off of the high school accolades, 5-star McDonald's All-American, not just based off of the accolades that she accumulated in her first season at Arkansas, but also she's 6'5". That's undeniable talent. So it's a huge get for Kim Mulkey. Let's all acknowledge the obvious. Angel Reese most likely is not coming back next season. You're going to have to replace and replenish this roster. You're going to have to not just replace an Angel Reese, but you're also going to have to supplement that with depth. Something that's really hurt this team so far this season. That I'll bring up the South Carolina game again. South Carolina had depth that LSU just frankly didn't have. Outside of the starting five, it was, okay, who's going to be able to step up? So great get for Kim Mulkey and the LSU Tigers. But again, the big news, LSU headed to the Sweet 16. UCLA and Creighton play tonight at 7:30. Winner of that game will face LSU in the Sweet 16. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you for making Locked On LSU your first to listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU, a little bit of a spring practice update. Brian Kelly spoke with the media a few days ago. We'll get a recap of what he said in his report of how the team is shaping up throughout spring practice.